All right, so as Suzanne mentioned, there are times when we find that people are beginning to not function as independently, or we start to see some changes in their needs and their level of independence. And when that happens, the centers are very closely connected to our outreach team, and we reach out to the families to try and see if there's a way we can provide some supports that helps that person maintain their independence. But there are also times when that person can no longer be in the center because of the limitations that we have in terms of what we can do. So outreach does a fantastic job of talking to those families and looking what other resources there would be available for them in the community. And that's a nice transition to talking about what we do at the Office on Aging. So our main office is in Bel Air. It's at 145 North Hickory Avenue, also known formerly as the Convent for St. Margaret's Church. The nuns still wander the hallways sometimes, we think. They like to play with the paper towel dispensers in the bathroom. And the services that we provide at the main office include information and assistance, the senior care program, the National Family Caregiver Support Program, home and community-based waiver services, the Senior Assisted Living Group Home Subsidy, Long-Term Care Ombudsman Program, the Guardianship Program, and the State Health Insurance Program and Senior Medicare Patrol. And we're going to talk about all those today. What our services do not include are, we are not an emergency or crisis service. We're not 911. We can't make anything happen, most likely today, tomorrow, and sometimes even next week, when it comes to a lot of the services and programs that we provide. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. But for instance, sometimes we'll get a family member and they'll call and they're like, my mom's being discharged from the hospital today, and I need blah, 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 whatever it might be, today. And I'm seeing a lot of you nod your heads that you've had those encounters with families, and you may have even had those encounters of those families calling you, and you know there really just isn't something like that. Most of our programs have an application process, an assessment process, eligibility criteria, and many of them have wait lists. We can't transport clients. We don't have access to emergency housing or funds for emergency housing. We're not a moving or delivery service. We had a lady who called a while ago, and I think Shar worked with her, and she found a lovely bedroom set that she wanted us to pay for, and oh, by the way, she also wanted us to move it. And I admire her gumption and her spirit, but that was not something we could do. We're also not medical professionals. We've learned a lot. Mark and Patty have probably gotten an honorary degree in medicine at this point in time with all the client issues they deal with, but we are not a medical professional team. We're also not there 24 hours a day. We're there Monday through Friday, 8 to 5. The only thing that we have that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, are our guardianship folks, and Mark and Patty will talk about that. We also cannot make someone stop driving. We can't make them go to a nursing home. We can't make them take medicine. We can't make them stop using the stove. Because we get a lot of phone calls from the community, especially from family members that are looking for us to have some magical ability to make their loved ones stop doing something or start doing something. We also have to be invited into people's homes or into their circumstances. We cannot force ourselves upon anyone. We can't go to a home and insist that someone let us in. We can't insist that someone participate in an assessment process. Everything that happens must be voluntary through our office. So triage. This is how you would go about, or a community member would go about, requesting services or connecting someone to services at the Office on Aging. I know that you saw, and the team members for outreach introduced themselves and mentioned which areas of the community they serve. We have 4 staff that provide outreach services, and Kathy helps a lot with that as well. But it's far better if you go through the triage process, because if you call them directly, one, it's not fair to the people that have called before who were in line before that, but there's a whole process in our office that works pretty well and is very fluid, and so it works a lot better if you call and go through the triage process. So you would do that by calling 410-638-3025. That's at the end of your packet, and you'd likely get Shar, or you would get Kathy Ward after you get our reception desk. we do our very, very, very best to make sure our phone is answered by a person. The only time you would get a not person at the front desk would be as if all the people that are at the front desk are on the lines with other folks. This time of year that could happen because, as you recall from last month's session, we're in the most wonderful time of the year known as open enrollment season. So our phones are busy, busy, busy. So the only time that you would get our recording is if you're calling after hours or if all of the reception staff are tied up and busy. So when you make that phone call, you can call or you can use a referral form. And the referral forms are in your packet. We have a little screenshot of it here. But it's a 2-page form. We encourage professionals to use that form and to send that over to us. You can fax it to us. I think our fax information is on there as well. And we can get that process started of getting someone connected to resources or following up with you. The questions that are on there are pretty rudimentary, the kind of questions that give us the details and information that we need to be able to move forward with a referral and to get the ball moving to help that individual or family. So the call or the referral form is triaged by one of our navigators. Again, that's Shar and Kathy Ward. And they will take that form, or they have a form they fill out if they're talking to someone on the phone, to the appropriate individual in the building who can connect that person with the service they need. Sometimes it might be multiple individuals they provide a copy of that information to. And then that staff person will then take that referral and look at everything else they've got going on and prioritize which calls they need to make first. There are certain things that bump somebody up in the speed in which we call them. Like if somebody's calling and telling us they don't have any food, or maybe they're out of medication and they don't have any access to go to the pharmacy, something like that would move them up. So just by way of an example of a call that we might get. Say we get somebody who calls and they have a loved one who's coming to live with them. And they are just beginning this process because there was some emergent health crisis wherever the family member lived. And so they're having to transition this person very quickly to the community here. And the person calls and they say, I'm looking for information on what programs and services my family member might be eligible for, but particularly I want to know about housing. So in the materials that you have a listing of the housing providers in our community. It's actually on the back of, I think, a sheet about Medicare Patrol. So that's what they're calling about. So triage gets that call, they get that information, and that gets handed off to the caseworker. And the caseworker, in the course of conversing with that person, finds out, oh, well, mom's moving here. She's a Maryland resident right now. She's moving from Baltimore City. It's December 6th. She hasn't done anything about her open enrollment. Maybe we need to look at that. In addition to needing to know about housing, she might need some in-home supports and may be eligible for a program like senior care. So we would connect that information. So in that call, already the person's talked to the triage specialist. They're probably going to talk to the case manager who's going to be working most of the angles, but they may also need to connect with the state health insurance program person. And then we find out that they are pretty active and they're looking for other activities. So maybe if they're not quite to the level of senior care, they'd like some information on senior centers. So when we get a call, we're trying to look at what are all the options that we can plug in here, because what we'd rather do is get on a situation before it becomes a crisis. So let us figure out that transportation services are needed here. They need some assistance with incontinence supplies or whatever it might be. How can we connect this person before we get the phone call that's, oh my God, everything and then some more is wrong? Because we get a lot of those phone calls. I'm sure you all do too. And it's at that point in time really hard to connect anything immediate to the problem. So we're always trying to look at what are the avenues that we can resolve now and get in front of. And we do encourage people to be independent as much as possible in doing their own process, because there are just too many people out there that need help for us to do everything for everyone. So we try to encourage people by sending applications, by telling them who to call, by going to this website if they're able to use the internet. So that's kind of how triage works. So I think it's you. I'll hand it over to Kathy.
Okay, information and assistance. Once we get calls in, a client may come to outreach and we determine what services they might need. Once we triage them, we may do a home visit. If we don't complete what they need during the phone call, for instance, they might just need some phone numbers and they're able to make things happen for themselves and they're able to do that, then that's what we do. But there may be some other things. If they have to apply for services, then what we have to do then is to help them fill out the forms, and verifications have to be collected, and we do those things. Meanwhile, we can assess the environment as well as the individual and how the family or other people in the household relate with them. So we might be asking some other community partners to step in terms of housing, maybe some assistance with their Maryland Energy assistance, and we just assess them for everything that they might be available for. We coordinate services through referrals and limited case management, and we do a lot of advocacy and working with other partners. For example, we have a lady now we've been working with for months about housing. Her housing needs are special because of some past history that she's had with judiciary. And it is very, very difficult. So I'm working with not only the housing agency, but with another agency to help her. Trying to keep her safe, trying to keep her together until we can come up with a solution. Our community outreach, we provide information to the community on services through the Office on Aging and community education sessions on various issues impacting aging and persons with disabilities. So we may do in-services and for APG because they have a lot of their military people there who have aging family members, and so last year I think we did like 4 or 5 for them because many of the people who are here with BRAC or people who have come to Aberdeen and Edgewood are in need of some education about what services they are available for them. And the participation in the multidisciplinary committees. I think everybody here is, a lot of the people here are part of that, and we're able to get together because a lot of times we have individuals in common that we're working with or have come in contact with. So it helps us to know what everybody else is doing and who has come in contact, and then we can come together and kind of come up with a solution to say, okay, we're going to do this and how it's going to be done, so that we're not having a client who is maybe manipulating in one area or the other and getting a lot more than what they're supposed to be getting in terms of services, and we can kind of help them to corral that person into services that will meet their needs and kind of get them settled into a good place. The medical loan closet is, we have whatever we get. We don't always have everything all the time. A lot of our things are donation, and some of the things we do purchase with funds that are specific for those. Some of the items that we have can only be specifically used for senior care clients, and then there are items that we loan out, and there is a deposit required for some items. We would like the client or the caregivers to be calling and to pick up the items, because sometimes there are specific things that we really need to know. I don't want to give a bench, a shower chair or bench that holds someone at $250 to someone who needs a bariatric chair, because that could cause a very serious accident. So when we require them to call, it's because we need some information to keep them safe, because not every piece of equipment is for everybody. We're identified by the state as a one-stop aging and disability resource center to provide information to our community. We have application assistance for our aging and for our young and disabled. Now, for the young disabled under the MAP, I think a lot of people hear the MAP program. Well, we have no services for people under the age of 60, but we can give them information and we can make referrals for them because we do not have, we're not funded for people under 60. But we do information and referral, okay? All right. Who's next?
Okay, and,
Oh, I'm
yes,
sorry.
absolutely.
Sorry. With the medical loan, equipment loan closet, do you guys accept donations for medical equipment?
The question was, do we accept donations of medical equipment? We do indeed, yes.
And then do you guys keep like a wait list for any equipment you don't have available?
No, we do not, because that means we have to remember to call people, and then that puts us in a bad position,
So it's
because,
first come, first served?
well, whoever calls, if we have it, and we can help them with it, we do.
And then how much is the cash deposit?
Not every item has a cash deposit. The question was, what is a cash deposit for loan closet items? There is a cash deposit only for specific expensive larger items, wheelchairs, etc. We do, so there are some different, I think some things have a different cost than others. I think the most is the ramps. And we are limited with the number of ramps we can loan out, but we're also concerned that there is someone who can set a ramp up that makes it safe for someone to use. So there's a lot of questions we ask. But part of the, there is a deposit for it, but we keep half of the deposit because we do have to keep the equipment in good repair. Okay. Yes?
I have a question. You said you do home visits and assessments. Are they nurses that do that, or social workers, or just?
They're assessed for services
It's
and
mostly
programs.
social and ancillary needs
So
and
it's not
gap
really
filling.
medical? Or-
No, it's not
No.
medical.
So just to clarify, so you have an idea, the people that I introduced today, that's the office. I think there's, Ann's not here, and then our reception staff, and then we have one other person in waiver. That's it, right? That's it,
Right.
that's us.
Yeah, from my knowledge, you don't have a lot of.
No,
No.
no, we have no medical services. We're not making a medical assessment. In fact, when Kathy talks, again, the question was, when we do assessments, are we doing them with medical staff with us? And that's a no. However, some of the programs we assess for, we refer to the health department for that medical part of the assessment. And so they do that piece. And then we work in concert on the plan of care for that individual. And then we'll talk with guardianship. There's a lot of medical concerns there, but that's a little bit different issue.
Any other questions?
Harford
Yes.
Memorial, any questions?
Oh, there's one right here.
Oh,
Hold
okay.
on.
Sorry.
One, do you accept walk-ins? And two, what's about the turnaround time from when a referral is submitted to when a potential client might hear from you?
Okay. When do we, for one question was, when do we accept walk-ins? And we prefer not to have walk-ins because the case managers are out of the building doing home visits on a regular basis, and they could come and get a special ride sometimes, and there's no one there to help them, or they have to sit and wait for a long period of time because the caseworkers are scheduling people in as well. So it's best to try and call and schedule an appointment. The turnaround time when a person calls in, it's very difficult right now because of, especially with open enrollment, we're swamped. And we've noticed over the past month and a half that the number of calls we're getting are increased. And last week we had 2 people out, so the turnaround time may be a little bit longer. But we are, and if there are people that we see that are really in a situation where they need immediate attention, we do those. I will pull those myself and do them if the case managers are really, really busy and they are really in need of someone to talk to them right away.
And because the triage specialists that we have are used to doing this job, they talk to these folks every day, they have a really good sense, they know when something's on fire. And they're phenomenal about if they can't find the caseworker, if the caseworker's in the weeds, they'll bring it to Kathy, or if Kathy's out dealing with something else, they'll bring it to Mark or Patty or me, whoever they can find, so that we can get to those really, really critical things. But you know, as well as we know, that everybody thinks their situation is the most critical thing. With open enrollment, we got until December 7th. We've only been in this for a few days, and we got people who are calling every 5 minutes. You said somebody was going to call me back. Yes, I said that 5 minutes ago. So, and because we do have to sort of prioritize those requests, and, sometimes people just have more critical issues than others. And then there are people that we know because we've worked with them off and on for a long period of time, and that's a little easier because we have more background on them, and it might be a quicker phone call, and we might know what their level of independence is to be able to do things for themselves. But we try very hard to make it quick. It's just never as quick as anybody would like.
And the quick things like phone numbers and information that Shar is great. She's been handling a lot of the calls for the loan closet. She handles a lot of the calls where she can get information right to the people, or if she can mail out information, she'll do those kind of things. And those are quick ones, but we do the best we can, and we get as much help. And everybody in the office will help if we get in a crisis with something.
Okay, any questions at Harford Memorial? Okay. All right. We're going to go ahead and talk about the National Family Caregivers Support Program. So Jan's going to come up. While she's coming up, I want to mention, Kathy was talking in this slide about the bottom part where it says the Aging and Disability Resource Center. And she said that, we do information and referral services only, that we're not funded to do other work for that population. And that's true. There are some caveats to that, because when Sharon comes up and talks about long-term care ombudsman program, when we talk about the waiver program, the level 1 program, something else I'm missing. What is it, guys? There are certain services that we provide in our office that are for anybody who, for instance, in a long-term care facility or an assisted living facility that Sharon would work with, there are younger residents. So not everything we do is tied to that older adult being the only one that can partake of services. But as we talk about those things, staff will clarify that. So I'm going to hand it over to Jan, who's going to talk about the National Family Caregiver Support Program.